Good day and welcome back. Today I'm going to cover with you 3 subject matters, specifically dementia, Alzheimer's, and normal aging, or vice versa. In this case, normal aging, then dementia, then Alzheimer's. Some of these terms are interchangeable, but I'm going to speak from a perspective of our brain and our memory. So, the main topic for now is going to be about normal aging. Normal aging is simply this. It is a manageable cognitive change that allows you to still be independent and things don't disrupt your daily activity. For example, you forget, I forget all the time. I might forget your name momentarily. I might have misplaced my keys. These glasses might be up here and I'm looking for them. Where's my glasses? Where's my glasses? They're on top of my head. Those things are not a severe neurological change in your memory. It is simply that you are aging normally. You go from birth to death aging. Even when you're in the grave, you're still aging. The nails still grow, the hair still grows. So normal aging can start somewhere in your 30s. No biggie. Nothing's going to happen. Where we live and what we do in our normal lives now is so stressful and so active that it's not a wonder that all of us don't forget. Nevertheless, it can start in your 30s and basically you're still independent. You still can do your daily activities. There may be some small hiccups in the day. As I said, misplacing the keys, or I'm a little slower in thinking. I'm a little slower in movement. I may not pick up a language as fast. It may take me time to learn some things, but it does not mean you have a dementia or Alzheimer's and you got to just run off and jump over an ocean because it's the end of the world. No, it is not. It's simply normal aging. You get these gray hairs, see that up there? Yes. You're going to get some wrinkles in your face. Great. But you are still able to actively and independently manage your life and or your activities. You can still pay bills. You can still drive. You can still do all those things. There'll be occasion when you're going to forget something. So it's not the end of the world. Forgetting is not dementia or Alzheimer's. You are simply aging normally. Relax, take some deep breaths, and enjoy the time that you are going into this aging period. That's every single day. And now today, I want to speak to you further regarding Big Daddy D, or what I term dementia. As promised, we spoke about normal aging. We're going to talk about dementia, and we'll talk about Alzheimer's as well. This is a lot. So I want to give it to you in pieces because you can easily be overwhelmed, but the point of this episode is for you to understand the differences between normal aging, dementia, and Alzheimer's. So grab your water, coffee, no brown liquor for now, and let's get started. Dementia. What is it and what it is not? Dementia is a progressive neurological disease that impacts your cognitive memory. You can lose your memory quite rapidly. In fact, in its simplest terms, very, very simple, I want you to know that it's a general term. Your loss of memory, language problems, oh my goodness, and other thinking abilities are severe enough that it interferes with your daily life. Now, there are 10 dementias. 10. Big Daddy D has 10 dementias. And I'm going to use this example. I'm going to call it dementia Big Daddy D because Big Daddy D has 10 children. Yeah, baby, 10 children. Okay? Of the 10, the number one child is Alzheimer's. That's in this nation and for that matter in the world. Now again, stay with me because it's a lot. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. Alzheimer's is not dementia, okay? It is a dementia. And it's important to distinguish that because dementia has 10 types or 10 children. So Big Daddy D had the number one child who is Alzheimer's and is just running wild and rampant and really knocking us out. And it's important to remember that dementia is simply a general term for loss of memory. It impacts your language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities. I'm going to touch on the 10 types of dementia, just so you have a bit of flavor. And again, there is no cure. Now, there's 10 types. Alzheimer's, we know there is no cure. That's why it's so very important of the work that's being done by Alzheimer's associations and all types of large conglomerates trying to eradicate this horrendous disease. But let's again stick to the subject matter, which is dementia. So, as I said, there are 10 types, right? And those 10 types, the number one is going to be what? Alzheimer's disease. So you have Alzheimer's disease, you have Lewy bodies, you got vascular dementia, you got frontotemporal dementia. For this segment, I'm going to probably talk about those four and or go in a deeper dive at another time frame. But Alzheimer's disease, Lewy bodies dementia, vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. You have the Korsakoff syndrome. Parkinson's disease is a dementia. Normal pressure hydrocephalus is a dementia. Huntington disease is a dementia. Posterior cortical atrophy is a dementia, and mixed dementias. Forgive me for the terminology. I will get it straight later on. For our purposes, you need only know what dementia is and that the number one child is Alzheimer's. I will spend some time speaking to you about Alzheimer's, Lewy bodies disease, frontotemporal, and vascular dementia, because those seem to be the top four that are impacting a good portion of the people in our nation. But Alzheimer's is the major one that's killing pretty much everybody, and it is a severe brain disease. It's as simple as that. All right, let's stay tuned as I take the next steps in defining for you Alzheimer's and what it is and what it is not. You've talked or heard me speak about normal aging, which sometimes you have some forgetfulness. It does not mean you have a dementia. And now we've spoken a bit about dementia, which we know now is a severe or progressive neurological disease that impacts your memory loss to the point where you cannot be independent, and more so your daily life. And now you know that of the 10 dementias I spoke about, Alzheimer's is the number one child. I want you to simply be able to walk away with an action item that you could take up, and that's just simply knowing what the difference is. Thank you for joining me again. I am Gigi the gerontologist, and I'm back to talk about Alzheimer's and its 10 children. Big Daddy D had 10 children. Alzheimer's is the number one child, which brings us to our subject today. This is a heavy subject matter. I personally have had a number of persons, even to date, who have Alzheimer's. And so I just strictly want to talk about Alzheimer's. I'm going to cover Alzheimer's. I'll talk about some of the signs and symptoms, and I'll talk about the stages at a very high level. Because more importantly is that there are 7 stages of Alzheimer's. So here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to walk away with: one point of clarity and one action item you can take once you've heard the information. All right. That said, what is Alzheimer's? And in its simplest form, it is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that impacts your brain, specifically memory loss. There is no cure. It is devastating to think of this disease in this nation and, for that matter, in the world. The progressive disease, it destroys your memory loss and other really important mental functions. It leads to cognitive decline in ways many of us can't explain. It is severe. There are 2 proteins. One is called amyloid plaque, And the other one is called Tau, T-A-U, fibers. And your brain is only so big. These two proteins build up in your brain, tangling it all up. Plaque from your teeth, think about that as well. And we'll talk about that another day. That plaque builds up, it's all tangled up, and at some point, sooner than later, it covers your entire brain. There are there's 7 million people in the U.S. who have Alzheimer's and are living. Alzheimer's is killing more Americans than, say, breast cancer and or prostate cancer. And for the bulk of this horrendous disease, it is really killing women a lot of times more than men. This is not a subject that I take lightly, as I have personal family members, and we'll talk about some of them as they are living with this disease, as personal family members who have died with this disease, even to this day. So I can speak quite clearly to you about the various stages, which we'll talk about in the coming episode, because it's a lot. It is overwhelming. When your mama's sitting there looking at you, you can't figure out if it's normal aging or if it is Alzheimer's or dementia. Well, when you walk away today, you'll have a clear and better understanding as to why she's asking those questions or why he's asking those questions, if it's a he or a parent or a loved one or a friend or whomever. This disease can impact you, in your 50s. They're finding some cases in 30s and even younger, which speaks a whole volume. In my family, we used to think that it was going to skip a generation. It did not. Okay. We're dealing with more stresses and strains than we can think of. So with that said, let's talk about a few other things that I want you to know. At one point in time, they used to call Alzheimer's senile dementia. In the South, where my family is from, and to whom my grandmother had it and other family members, they called it second childhood, because primarily you're reverting back to potentially a baby, but the brain cells are fried, are destroyed. It has totally destroyed your memory to the point that you die. And because it is impacting all your mental functions, it's also impacting other bodily functions. Everything simply just breaks down. It requires a medical diagnosis. Many of you are walking around here with loved ones, if you even know it. You got to go to the doctor. You must get lab tests or imaging. You need to know if it is Alzheimer's or if it is another dementia. Remember, those words are interchangeable. Alzheimer's is a dementia, not the other way around. Okay? And basically, there's 7 stages to Alzheimer's. I'm going to cover that in another episode. Chronic it is, and you can live many years until you die. That is the truth. That is some facts. And I want to talk a little bit about some signs and symptoms. Not going to go deep, because we're going to cover things like what memory problems may be occurring. There's a thing called MCI, or mild cognitive impairment. It comes with aging, okay? And those things are things like you may have seen in some family members, but you're not quite sure. You're losing things. You're forgetting to go to events and appointments. You're having some trouble coming up with words. It is the truth. But this is different from, say, normal aging, where you will forget, but you can retract that memory later on. Some other signs and symptoms are behavioral. Some folks are getting aggressive. Some people are going through sundowning, not fun. You got people who are wandering and getting lost. Then there's mood changes, depression, apathy, anger, loneliness. These are all real things. There's some psychological as well. There's depression, as I said. There can be some severe hallucinations and paranoia. And then basically your whole body type, you can forget to eat and you become restless. And I will tell you from experience, going through it right now with family members. I have a sister who lost 30 pounds, and we ended up having to really inundate her with all types of protein drinks and Ensure and everything else to get her to a place where the weight came back. because she just didn't know. But more on that later, and I'll spend some time on mild cognitive impairment. The last thing is at a very high level, because I'm going to cover with you. You are not alone in this. I'm walking right along with you. I want to cover some of the stages. There are early stages that are mild cognitive impairment. You forget. You're in a conversation with your mom or your daddy or your loved one. You misplace things, okay, but you don't remember where you put them at all. You're going to forget names and places and objects. There is repetitive questions. Oh my goodness. One of the most common things that someone with Alzheimer's can have is, I'm sitting right next to you. I had an uncle. I'm sitting right next to him. And he's like, hey, oh, when'd you get here? Uncle Jack, I just got here. Oh, 2 seconds later, not 2 minutes, 2 seconds later. Hey, Ginell, I didn't know you were here. I'm sitting right next to him. So we went through 7 iterations of, ooh, you got here. And I'm sitting right next to him. And that's okay. That's okay. We soon found out what it was. So there's early stages, that's a mild cognitive impairment. Then there's a middle stage, it's like moderate. Basically there are struggles with language and reasoning. You're unable to get dressed. You don't want to do no multitasking whatsoever and can't if you wanted to. And then there'll be some delusions. There may be some hallucinations you see in that person. Okay. And then there's like this late stage. It's like severe. I will tell you, my sibling right now, I have 2 sisters. One has Alzheimer's and the other one has vascular dementia. With the sister who has Alzheimer's specifically, she's in the late stages now. So this is close to my heart. And I want to make sure that you know what to do. But in that late stage, the plaques and the tangles, those 2 proteins I told you about, they're spreading throughout her brain. She can't communicate. She's literally on her back and dependent on the care of family and others. And pretty much, let's just be truthful about this, because a lot of us can get into denial real quickly. To understand that this is near end of life. I don't know when the day is. I just know that in this particular stage, it's pretty severe. And that my sister and perhaps your loved one or someone else may be in a bed or their body is simply shutting down. Now, I know it sounds like all doom and gloom, but remember, you're not going it alone. There is no cure, but there is still hope. And there are still things that can be done that help you as a caregiver, because what we don't want is you and I going and leaving the earth first, because it can happen. I want you to stay tuned to the next segment or episode, because in that episode, I'm going to cover the 7 stages of Alzheimer's. See you then. Thank you for sharing this time with me. If what you have heard and what we talked about has been helpful, please scroll down and check the description where I have placed resources and links for you. And if you want more than a podcast episode, go to TheSeniorAdvocators.org. That's TheSeniorAdvocators.org, where you will find free resources for you. And if you want to talk over your specific situation, I'm there too. Now, before you go, please like, share, and subscribe. This will help many families who need to find this show when they most need it. Remember, you cannot go this alone. I'll see you in the next episode.